Good morning. My name is Mike Edwards. I'm with the Ohio Department of Education. I am here as your moderator for today's meeting. Here's the agenda for today. You should have received this in the mail. Excuse me. As you come on board today, make sure you mute your mics and your cameras unless you want to be part of our recording today. So we're going to get started here. First of all, we want to thank you for participating in this event today, those of you who are dialing in or are videoing in. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. I also want to thank the presenters for their participation and their willingness to share information about their agencies. Like I said, my name is Mike Edwards. I work for the Department of Education. I'm in the Office of Field Relations. My supervisor is Ed Weisenbach. He's the State Technology Coordinator. And we're involved with the several projects, but mostly we're working with the school districts and schools with the Ohio K-12 network. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The purpose today of this meeting is that we're going to share some information about the different agencies that you might be aware of or that you might not be aware of that can help you with providing instruction to your students. And one of the things that we do have available is the Ohio K-12 network. And that is a reimbursement program or a subsidy program, I guess is a better way of putting it, for schools to receive funds to help with their network connections. That's usually $1,800 a year, and all the information that you need for applying for that grant, which is open right now. You should have received an email week of October 5th saying that was open. It'll be open for 20 business days. And all the pages that you need are right here. We have an FAQ sheet, some spending guidelines, subsidy information. The second thing I want to make you aware of on the ODE website is the Technology Coordinator Listserv. This has been around for roughly about 20 years, give or take a year or two. It is a listserv, email distribution listserv, however you want to phrase it, for technology coordinators and directors to share information, ask questions, just follow along in case somebody's having an issue that you're having, and it might be some information for you. There. And the final page I want to share with you is this page. That'll be very important to you in the spring. Well, should be now and also in the spring. This is the testing information. You see here, test coordinators. This tells you, this is with Kirk Ross. And Kirk runs the testing for the state. He doesn't run it, but he's kind of the administrator of all the testing. So this is his information page for the test coordinators or the technology coordinators, different parts of the testing environment. So if you have any questions, you can find some information here. The next thing I want to bring up is also another meeting we're going to have on the October 27th. You should have received an email yesterday announcing that meeting. That is our coordinators meeting. We have those every year. We have these meetings, the new technology coordinators, every 2 or 3 years, depending upon the size of the audience. So if we have a couple of years where there's not much movement in the technology coordinator community, then we usually hold off until we have a sizable number. Right now, on this meeting today, we have roughly 100 people that have signed up for it. So that's a sizable community. In past years, we've had 4 or 5. Copies of all the presentations that are going to be shared today will be available upon request. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Andrews with the Management Council, and he's going to share some information with you there.
All right, great. Thanks, Mike. Jeff Andrews here from the Management Council. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Management Council and IT Information Technology Centers. And I know that things have changed for technology coordinators over the years. Sort of like the technology has changed. There's a 5 meg hard drive and there's a terabyte SD card. So just sort of a metaphor for how much your roles have changed. And a lot of technology coordinators that are new, in my experience, have come sometimes from outside of education. And so there are a lot of things that if you had lived in a school district for a long time might be familiar. But I'm going to try and touch on things that are that might be new to those folks or helpful to those folks, as well as people who are veterans of schools. So I was actually speaking with another group recently, and these were some of the questions that they wondered about how IT actually happens in schools. How do people really get paid? How do students really get scheduled, and so on? How does ODE get the data for your report cards, and who houses all your student learning data and keeps your data secure and all that stuff? So at any rate, the answer to that is your ITC. As a new technology coordinator, I encourage you to make fast friends over there at your ITC, because they have a lot of both experience and expertise and institutional knowledge that'll make your job easier. And I think one of the things that's sort of interesting about ITCs is that they're different than ESCs or SSTs or other of the alphabet soup regional organizations around the state, or organizations that you'll probably hear from today. And that is that you actually own your ITC. So the technology centers, they've been around for over 40 years, and they work together as this statewide network called the OECN, the Ohio Education Computer Network. And Mike touched on the fact that you have a subsidy of $1,800 per building as you get your internet through these ITCs. That's just one of many things that they help with. The Management Council is sort of a central coordinating, supporting group to help the OECN work. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the services that come through the ITCs. Management Council also works pretty closely with ODE and some other state agencies So we'll touch on that a little bit this morning as well. And I realize I only have 15 minutes, Mike, so we'll touch on things briefly.
Yep, Jeff, your
Yes.
PowerPoint isn't up.
It's not up. I thought it was all right. Wow, you guys have missed a lot of fun slides.
Yeah,
I've just been reading them to myself.
We've been watching you.
Super. Well, is it up now?
Yes.
All right. Oh, well, okay. Well, we won't even go back through all those. I'm sorry that you've missed out on some of those. But so are you getting this now?
Yes.
The screen. Okay. So the ITC does some back office IT work, supports learning. We have. Well, let me back up here. This is what the statewide map of ITCs looks like. So if you've noted the things that I'd said earlier, these are the territories. So does a lot of back office IT work. There are a couple of governance models. These aren't particularly compelling for technology coordinators today, but you just should be aware that they're formed mostly by what are called councils of government, and that's beyond the scope of our conversation this morning. But the fundamental thing is that your districts, you own your ITCs. You can think of it kind of like an equity membership at a country club. You know, you actually own a chunk of the resources there. And an ITC board is made up of generally all the member districts or a designated subset if the districts choose to do that. So another little thing about ITCs that you should know, since you own them, most of the funding comes from you. About 4 to 6% of the operating costs come through the state budget, but the rest of it comes from school districts. They're assessed on a per student basis, whether that's $20 a student or $25 a student or somewhere a little more, a little less than that. But the ITCs typically represent a very small fraction of a single percent of a district's general fund. We know of ITCs who have told us about districts that say they spend more on bus tires, not buses, but bus tires in a given year than they spend on their ITC. So they really are quite a good bargain. And then there are also some additional services that ITCs offer to you. So little history. Once upon a time, there were 27 what were called A sites back in 1979. And that evolved into 22 DA sites, data acquisition sites, about 2000. And now there are 18 ITCs. And the original reason to set up information technology centers, or A sites as they were called back then, was that the state auditor wanted to have a uniform school accounting system. And so originally the only thing that ITCs did was payroll and accounting. And they then typically things have been added since then in terms of student services and EMIS and internet and InfoHio and so on. The urban 8, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, Akron, Canton, Youngstown, Toledo, and Dayton typically provide many of their own services. But everybody else generally works through an ITC. And these are the 5 services that are now codified in law that ITCs have to provide: fiscal, student information, EMIS, internet, and library/digital resources. I'm going to talk briefly about what each one of these involves. Fiscal services, payroll, accounting, and often HR services, which can be the IPDPs, how teachers continue to stay certified. It can also involve contract management and so on. On the student services side, this is the whole part where your students get scheduled, both the building and the individuals, electronic grade books, community access portals, learning management systems, virtual classes, all of those things, and special exceptional learners. All of those things tend to come through this under the student services umbrella in your ITC. A third key area for the ITCs is the network connectivity and technology services they provide. They provide your internet through ORNet, which is the Ohio Academic Resource Network. That is in cooperation with higher education. And ORNet is really a great asset for Ohio. Along with that comes all sorts of snazzy firewalls, NIST compliance over at the ITCs, and cybersecurity. They can also support your school network, whether it's managing your wireless access points or housing your servers or whatever resources. And they also help you with getting the schools getting the internet through the ITCs for that $1,800 a building, that subsidy. They do, and the whole network around the whole state is end-to-end monitoring. And so when you access state resources or other ITCs around the state, it's all private. That's still a private network. You don't have to go out on the commercial internet for that. And the ITCs also provide a filtering of content for the Children's Internet Protection Act compliance. Another area that ITCs provide is training and support for EMIS. And as technology coordinators, I would guess that most of you are in districts where you also have an EMIS coordinator, and you may try really hard not to become good at EMIS, but doesn't matter, you're going to get drawn into that anyway. It just because of the relationship with the ITC and the fact that it's so technology based. And so you will, again, want to be fast friends with your ITC because they're going to make sure. And EMIS is a really important feature. It is your school funding, and it is your school report card. And if you want to know the two things that school boards and superintendents get evaluated on, it's how the school funding is going and how the school report card looks. There are certainly other things, but those are two critical things. So as you get drawn into EMIS, you'll want to be getting a lot of help from your ITC. And it's not, EMIS is not simple. I'm not going to talk really about InfoOhio because you have another session on InfoOhio later today. You have Melissa Salima and Lori Lee are going to be talking, and they're far smarter than I am, so they're going to tell you all about that. But InfoOhio is a great deal. I will point out that at the funding at the state level is $2.5 million, and if districts all bought the digital tools that come with InfoOhio on their own, costs about $57 million. So InfoOhio is about a 95% off deal. It's pretty good. Other ITC activities that you should be aware of, you can your ITCs will offer you VoIP services, all sorts of reporting and field trip and forms, final forms, specialized data analysis to help you dig into student data, and then all sorts of custom reporting. I just noted, as we have transitioned from an older version of the state accounting system to the newer version of the state accounting system, we needed to make sure it worked with all the external packages that ITCs are employing to make it to do everything schools want. And we found there's 63 custom fiscal add-on packages out there. So in fact, ITCs are really helpful in making sure that you're able to do all sorts of custom activities in the district. And then the ITCs will from time to time also work outside of the K-12 environment for the purpose of making a little bit of money so that they can spend it on the districts and keep your fees as low as possible. They've worked from time to time with other governmental or educational entities like the Department of Higher Ed and or the Secretary of State's office. ITCs got involved in helping a little bit in terms of some security and county governments and so on. And then most recently, we're involved with Job and Family Services and Child Nutrition to collect information so that all the children in Ohio who are eligible for free and reduced lunches get cards to make up for the meals they missed for remote education. Briefly about the Management Council, I just wanted to point out that the Management Council, the idea, the vision is to optimize resources and collaboration across the OECN so that we can live out the mission of connecting ITCs in schools, securing the data, optimizing the technologies for everybody, and thereby empower the learners and teachers and leaders to make a difference in Ohio. Management Council services that we provide for ITCs as sort of a central body. Zoom, as you know, is pretty prevalent right now. There are 65,000 licenses of Zoom being used by teachers in Ohio. And those we got for $5 a piece, as opposed to $180 a piece, which is what you'd pay on the commercial market. So then KnowBe4 is a cybersecurity resource that you can employ that, and it will train all of your teachers and staff members in terms of spoofing and that sort of thing. We'll not go into InfoHigh resources, but we also do consolidated services for ITCs in terms of disaster recovery and backup and security measures. We peel off over 100 million phishing scams a year before they even get to you. We host applications for the ITCs, just as ITCs do for your schools. We do specialized data analysis and data integrity with Jitterbit. I'm going to talk about Generation Yes in a moment. Anyway, there are lots of things that we do for the ITCs, and then we also do some things for other governmental bodies. Some specific programs that you ought to know about as technology coordinators. One is Generation Yes. Generation Yes is a program that you can run in your school district that will have students from grade 3 to 12 be able to work with teachers to co-develop content, but also can be first-tier troubleshooting in the districts. And there are 20-some districts in Ohio that are already doing Generation Yes. Talk to your ITC, but what it really means is that you can have an army of students in your district helping to troubleshoot technology for you, earning a little bit of money, getting some good career preparation, and gaining some skills in terms of working with teachers and other students to develop content. So Generation Yes is something that I would encourage you to get interested in. The Ohio K-12 Help Portal. This is another program that is going to help you. It's Ohio K-12, ohio-k12.help. But that's where your teachers will be working with us on the kindergarten readiness assessment and roster verification. For those of you that are new, roster verification is a DE runs to essentially align students and teachers so that as Ohio determines the value added of being in each class, the students are in fact associated with the appropriate teacher. There are also all these other services, FAFSA, ACT, SAT, and so on the K-12 Help Portal. So you'll learn a lot about that through the year, but you can talk to your ITC about that, or you can reach out to the Management Council directly. Then there are several other programs through your ITCs, Zoom, TechGuard. Some of you may have heard years ago, there used to be these Fred Pryor seminars. We've arranged through ITCs that you can have unlimited that's now online, Fred Pryor training for your staff, and remote edX, I'm going to talk about in a second. Well, I'm going to right now, as a matter of fact. Remote edX is a statewide set of supports that ODE has launched to transform caring, teaching, and learning opportunities. Basically, the idea is setting up supports so that when school districts are in remote learning environments, that they have some additional tools to use. The exchange is something Melissa and Lori will talk about, but basically InfoOhio is going to be running that. It's going to be a big group, a big collection of professional development and materials that can be used for remote learning. Those things will be trained. The exchange will train the support squad, which is going to be coming out of the ESCs. The support squad will be working with your teachers to help them be more effective in their remote instruction. And the connectivity champions which comes out of the Management Council and the ITCs, is 20 people around the state who are already working every day, all day, just trying to make sure that kids, families are connected to schools so that remote education can go on. So this is a big statewide program. And this is the breakdown of the regions for the connectivity champions. And here you can see that the connectivity champions, there are 4 for the East region, 4 for the North region, 4 for the West region, 3 for Meta, 2 that are working with urbans, and then 1.5 that are working in the central office. And you can see the number of districts over to the right side there and the number of students in each region. But the connectivity champions are there. You can get their help right now for any family that is not that is not able to connect to the internet to the schools for remote learning. And Mike told me to stop by 9:30, and I see it's 9:28, so I thought I'd leave a second for questions if there are any in the chat box.
Jeff, we have one.
Yes, sir. What's that?
It's what are the Nicole has stated that she's confused by the program. What are they offering exactly? Support for connectivity or connectivity itself?
If the question is in regards to the connectivity champions, they are not offering connectivity. They facilitate the conversation and the research between vendors and schools and ITCs and families themselves. So they're not competing with Verizon or T-Mobile or Spectrum or any of the providers. They are just there when anybody can't get connected. They're there to try to make that connection.
Okay, and somebody else had their hand raised, and I did not catch who it was. If you want to unmute your mic and ask the question. Oh, Wendell.
Are you saying that they give internet to the students, or no? That's where I'm getting kind of confused when you said internet connectivity and relationships with our students.
The connectivity champions will look at what the challenges are for the families and perhaps find solutions that through different vendors or through different means or through public accessibility to some form of Wi-Fi that the family or the school district wasn't necessarily aware of. And I also see a question about our private schools have this service too or not, and the answer is yes. This is for private schools, community schools, traditional public districts, anyone that's being educated in Ohio.
What's the name of the program?
Well, it's the Connectivity Champions are part of the Remote edX project. So let me see if I can. Remote edX is the project, and it's coordinated out of the Department of Education by Sean Yoder, and then and you can go to ohio-k12.help and work through the portal, but you can also call or reach out to ODE or to if you Google Remote edX, it'll take you to the resources as well. And I will get a URL up here in just a second when I can have my screen back so that I can so that everybody doesn't have to watch me go track that URL down. But I'll have that for you momentarily as somebody else starts to speak.
Okay, Jeff, if you would just post it in the chat window.
I sure will.
There's another question from Jan.
Are there any subscriptions or software available or supplied by the ITC? The ITC will provide there's a per student fee that a school district would typically pay. Let's just say it's $20. Might be a little more, might be a little less. That will include access to all of the student software to do the scheduling, the grading, the attendance, the fiscal software that will do the payroll, accounting, and all that good stuff. There is software. There's some internet software. Some library software that comes with that I believe Lori and Melissa will speak about soon. And okay, there we go. And the URL for Remote edX just popped up. So thank you, Andrew Tompkins.
Always good to have friends.
It is good to have friends. And anyway, so all of the software that comes from the ITC will be part of the ITC fee that districts pay.
Is there anything else? I mean, you talked about the Zoom licensing.
Yes.
Are there any other softwares available like that?
Oh yeah. There's one called TechGuard that will query that will send fake phishing emails to all your staff to find out who will click on the dancing cat video or whatever it is to see who's going to get fooled by the email. And then it will give you a report. You, the technology coordinator, you'll get a report of who was fooled by that, and then there's professional development associated with it, so that you can have people get better at not being fooled by by phishing scams and so on. That one's called TechGuard. There's software that has training for all different kinds of that prior learning software, whether it's human resource training or managerial training or Excel and PowerPoint training, or I think they have 5,000 different courses, basic communications. They have all sorts of different things. So yeah, your ITCs will have lots of additional software that you can purchase through the ITC at a substantial discount. Zoom is just the example because it happens to be, sort of the coin of the realm right now. And the fact that we were fortunate enough to negotiate some very favorable rates with Zoom before this mess all started. We signed that agreement a year and a half ago, and we were just we were sort of, we don't want to say we were prescient, but we were lucky, and made these arrangements so that Zoom would be extraordinarily inexpensive for students and teachers, well, free for students and inexpensive for teachers.
Okay.
But yes, there are lots of software. Sorry, go ahead.
Tracy, did you want to ask your question?
Yes. Question. Do you know if the ITC has a partnership? We currently use Geometrics software training. It's a third-party vendor, and we use it for all of our certifications that we infuse into our classroom environments. Do you know if they have a partnership with them?
It's called Geometrics?
No, it's called Geometrics.
Geometrics.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know can you tell me what school district you're in?
I'm with Academy for Urban Scholars.
Okay, can you tell me what town you're in, where you're located?
Columbus, Ohio.
In Columbus, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the ITC that you would probably be associated with is one called Meta. And I can check and see if Meta has a relationship with Geometrics. There isn't one that we have done statewide, mm-hmm. but if we know that there's an interest in a statewide arrangement, that's mm-hmm. generally when we go out and try to pursue something on behalf of all the school districts in Ohio. And mm-hmm. So I'll do a little homework on Geometrics with Meta, and you should certainly feel free to follow up with me. I'm just Andrews at managementcouncil.org. And then we can make sure Andrew, would you put email address in the chat window since you're so good at that?
Perfect. We're using it now. We used it last year and we're using it here, but it actually, they have the learn keys with it and the practice test. So because our site is a Certiport testing site, we're able to test our students for industry credentials. So I was just wondering, since we're spending the money and this already happening, I want to know if we have that partnership so we can get a break, because it gets a little CompTIA and Microsoft certifications. And then I heard you say something about communications and entrepreneurship and business, which both of those, one is infused in our English curriculum and the other one is infused in our government curriculum, so that our students, after they take their course, they have a certified industry credential. So, we're spending the money. So if we can have a partnership, that would be beautiful.
Okay, well, I'll do some homework and just reach out to me by email and I'll get back to you on what I learned.
Okay.
And from the standpoint of industry credentials, there are a couple of programs that do support that, and the prior learning is one of them, but it's not as deep as I think Gmetrics is. But I think there's another one that may also be in play. So let me do a little homework on that, and I will get back with you. Just reach out to me so I know how to get a hold of you. And then I see a question from Lynn Norton. Is there a statewide contract for online forms such as OneView or Final Forms? Right now, there is not, because, we approached Final Forms about that, and they were not quite ready to engage in a statewide contract because they had just recently signed several contracts with individual ITCs, and so we're working on trying to get something statewide. We're also encouraging a couple of the vendors that do student systems to build more of the Final Forms capability into their systems. But there is no statewide deal on OneView or Final Forms yet, but that's definitely on our radar.
Okay, if you have further questions for Andrew, I know he's going to jump off, but post them here and we'll try to get them to him. Next up
we'll jump back in later on. It's just this other 10 o'clock thing. But okay. Thanks very much for accommodating the schedule, Mike, and it's good to see everybody.
Thank you. Thank you again, Jeff. And now we'll switch over to Lori Gurman, the State E-Rate Coordinator. Lori?
Good morning, everyone. Give me just a second here. Let me share my screen. Mike, is it showing up okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning. I am the State E-Rate Coordinator, and I did see a number of familiar names in the list of participants. So good morning to everyone, and welcome to the new folks. So this morning, in a very short time frame, I'm going to explain to you what E-Rate is. And my job as the state coordinator on behalf of ODE is to help you understand this program. What are all the rules? How do I fill out the forms? Just to make sure that you understand all of the ins and outs. And Mike, I can talk about E-Rate for hours, so please help me watch my time and tell me when to shut up.
Will do.
I have known Mike for years, so I would not be offended if he told me to shut up. So, all right. So E-Rate, it's actually the Schools and Libraries program. All right, with the nickname E-Rate. Okay, education rate, but it provides funding for eligible services for both schools and libraries nationwide. So it is a federal program. 1998 was the first year that we started applying and receiving funding. It's administered by a nonprofit company called USAC, Universal Service Administrative Company, and it's under the direction of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. All right, so the FCC, as I said, they provide the direction. They're the ones who make the rules. And then USAC basically says, okay, they're going to check to make sure we're following those rules. So E-rate is considered a discount program. It is not a grant. So with the E-rate funding, if you receive a lump sum reimbursement for your E-rate services, you can take that reimbursement and basically you can spend it on whatever the district or the school decides. All right. So again, this is not a grant. Now with E-rate, we have what's called a discount range. All right. It depends on how much funding you're going to receive. So it's anywhere from 20 to 90% of the eligible cost for what we call Category 1 services. And I'll explain what Cat 1 means here in a minute. And then 20 to 85% for Category 2 services. The discount is calculated based on the poverty level, and we use the National School Lunch Program, okay, the eligibility for free and reduced lunches to determine your rate, along with are you in an urban or rural location, and then the service type. Now, when we talk about service type, it's just are you at a 90% for Category 1 and 85% for Category 2. Now, as far as the discount rate, it's not a one-to-one correlation. So if we look at the discount matrix, if we look over on the left-hand side, if you have 35 to 49% of your students district-wide that qualify for free and reduced, if you're in an urban location, and whether it's urban or rural, it's based on census data. All right, it is what it is. So if, again, 35 to 49%, you're a 60% discount rate. Okay, if it's an urban location, or 70% if it's rural. Now, you'll notice that up until we get to 80%, the rural locations do get a little bit higher discount rate. It's because it costs more, to get bandwidth, internet access in those rural areas. But once we hit 80%, it's the same regardless of where you're located. Now, if you have 75 to 100% free and reduced eligibility, you're at 90% for Category 1, 85 for Category 2. Now, I have to point out, with this year, with COVID, basically the National School Lunch Program, the free lunches have been extended to all students, regardless of, the family's, ability to pay for the lunch or not. So for this upcoming funding year, I have to point out that just because every student, right, within your district may be eating a free lunch, that is not going to give us all a 90% discount rate. There's not enough money in the fund to allow for that. So starting next week, I will be conducting my fall training. Please plan on attending that. We're going to talk about, the COVID impact, how we're going to have to adjust some things, all right, because of changes like this. All right, but again, look at the discounts, look at the matrix there to see where you fall. Now, I've mentioned the Category 1 and Category 2. The difference here, Category 1 provides connectivity to the building. All right, so your data transmission service, your bandwidth, your internet access. So this could be the bandwidth coming into your district, as well as the circuits between the buildings. All right, but again, that all makes up Category 1. Category 2 is the connectivity within your school buildings. All right, so basically the infrastructure. Pardon me, with Cat 2, it's broken down into 3 service types. First is internal connections. That is basically the hardware, the connectivity hardware. We also have a service called MIBS, Managed Internal Broadband Service, and I'll get more detail on that here in a minute, and then basic maintenance of the internal connections. Now, another difference here between Cat 1 and Cat 2. All right, services under Category 1, they're not limited in cost as long as they're cost effective. All right, so you don't have a fixed budget for Category 1 services. The cost, all right, but again, there are rules in place where service providers cannot come in because you're getting E-rate funding and price gouge, all right, and charge maybe it's a Time Warner, all right, or AT&T, whoever, if they come in and say, we're going to charge the school district 3 times as much than we would charge, say a business in your area, that's against the rules, all right? They cannot come in and charge more to a school or library just because you get E-rate. All right. Now, with category 1, all buildings within the district qualify for service. So in addition to your schools, if you have a separate bus garage, a maintenance building, all right, all of those buildings qualify for category 1. Now, category 2, it's a little bit different. It is based on a 5-year budget period. All right. And there is a fixed budget that you can, spend within that budget. Now, the budget is going to be calculated based on the number of students district-wide. Now, also here, only schools qualify, not the support facilities, the bus garage, the maintenance building, if you have a separate admin building. All right, so you cannot use your Category 2 funding to buy equipment for those support facilities. Now, Category 2, in its current form, has been around for 5 years. All right, well, actually 6. Beginning with our next funding year, beginning July 1, 2021, moving forward, all right, we're going to be under some new rules, some very welcomed new rules. So beginning with the next funding year, Category 2 budgets are going to be at the district level. It's going to be one consolidated budget. So you'll look at the total number of students district-wide. We're going to have a new multiplier, all right, a new per student allocation, right, starting with the new funding year. So it'll be $167 per student, all right, based on the total student count district-wide. So then when you calculate your budget, let's say you have 3,000 students in your district, that comes out to just a little over $500,000, all right? That's what we call the pre-discount budget. You can then decide as you purchase that equipment, which school do you need to put that equipment in? Maybe one year you need to buy, the lion's share needs to go at the high school because you need to replace all of the APs there. All right. So again, you can choose which of your schools you're going to spend that money at. All right. But again, it's a 5-year budget. Now, if you're a smaller school where maybe you have less than 150 students, then you're going to get a 5-year budget based on what we call the funding floor. All right. And the funding floor is $25,000. So again, it could be a school with 60 students. Maybe it's an alternative school through one of our ESCs, with maybe 15 students. All right. Then again, that they would qualify for that budget floor, the 25,000. Now, when we talk about eligible services, again, just to get a little more into the different categories. I mentioned Category 1. This is the broadband connectivity, internet access. All right. So again, it would include the circuits, depending on how many buildings you have. What is your campus, makeup? So it would include that head-in circuit coming into your district. All right, as well as the circuits between the buildings. And again, remember your bus garage, maintenance buildings, athletic stadiums, all right, those also qualify for Category 1. So if you're putting circuits to those facilities, again, you would get funding for that. All right. Again, if it's if you're all under the same roof, all right, a K-12 campus, again, that circuit and the internet access. Now, I also want to point out both Ed and Jeff mentioned the K-12 subsidy, where that's state funding. There is a requirement that you apply for E-rate, all right, basically through an ITC. You have to apply for E-rate in order to qualify for the state subsidy. All right, I like to explain that if you miss filing E-rate, it's a double whammy, because not only do you lose your E-rate funding, you also lose the K-12 subsidy. All right, so really important, that you keep up with filing dates and, those kinds of requirements. Now, when we talk about Category 1, it really doesn't matter how you're getting that internet. Most of us, it's fiber, it's Ethernet. In some cases, if it's a very rural area, maybe it's an area where it's too costly to get fiber to a building, you can do satellite service, you can do microwave. I do want to point out, again, in light of COVID, with E-rate, E-rate only provides services for your school property. All right, so what we call, on premise. If you look down at the bottom of this list, cellular data plans are listed. And this is a big question that I've gotten this year. Cellular data plans are listed as an eligible service for E-rate, but it would only be used on your school property. Okay, so if you're getting hotspots to send home to students, those hotspots would not be eligible for E-rate funding. All right, so it has very limited eligibility. It's typically used for, like, say, a library's bookmobile, right, where this is the only way that you could get internet access to that facility. All right, but again, E-rate only covers on-premise, school property access. Now, when we talk about category 2, I mentioned those 3 service types. So internal connections. Okay, I mentioned, the hardware. So it's the hardware necessary to provide, basically the infrastructure. So it could be access points, controllers. If you need to put in new cable drops, it would cover everything from, the installation of those drops. If you have to do, Panduit for surface mounts, base plates, all of that would be eligible. I want to point out, as far as servers go, caching servers are the only servers that are eligible. All right, that has not changed. All right, so again, if you have a caching server, you could get E-rate funding for that server. Firewalls. Now here, this is going to sound crazy, but E-rate covers basic firewalls. All right. In order to qualify for E-rate, we have to filter. That has always been the rule, well, since 2002, when CIPA, the Children's Internet Protection Act, came into being. Okay, but unfortunately, as it stands right now, E-rate will not cover filtering cost. We've referred to it in the past as an unfunded mandate. We're hoping that that's going to change in the future, but as it stands right now, the filtering costs are not eligible for E-rate funding. All right, but as we look through this list, routers and switches, if you put in a rack and UPS is to plug the switches, the routers in, all right, that would be eligible. Equipment license. With license, you can purchase a multi-year license. Maybe you're doing a 3-year or a 5-year license, say for some Meraki APs. All right. Again, the license cost would be eligible. If you're getting some type of service that's cloud-based, okay, a cloud-based functionality, all right, say for controllers or firewall service, all right, it still qualifies even if it's cloud-based. Operating systems, I mentioned installation, taxes and fees, all of those things are eligible under internal connections. Now, it's also important to know what's not eligible. Storage devices, general servers, anything having to do with voice. This was a change several years ago where the FCC, in order to provide more funding for Category 2, they phased out voice service. All right, so anything that gives you a dial tone, all right, would not be eligible for E-rate. The other thing here is E-rate covers that connectivity piece, but it does not cover end user devices. All right, so computers, tablets, all right, end user devices are not eligible. But I mentioned, when you get that reimbursement, all right, from E-rate, if you want to take that lump sum reimbursement and go buy tablets with it, that's allowed. All right, you can use that reimbursement to buy whatever.
Okay, or you got a minute left.
Quick. All right. I mentioned MIBs. This is the management of that connectivity equipment. So if you're paying someone to come in, a company to come in to maintain your equipment, all right, to maintain the router, switches, access points, that service cost could be eligible. And we can do this one of 2 ways. Some vendors will basically lease the equipment. The equipment's just covered, included as part of the service. Or it could be a vendor coming in to pay for your school-owned equipment. All right, so again, you can use your Cat 2 money for that, or the maintenance of that equipment. Now, with maintenance, it does have limited eligibility. If it's really basic maintenance, where it's covering the basic tech support, configuration changes, bug fixes, that is 100% eligible. But if it's something like Cisco SmartNet, that's considered an insurance policy. All right, and that you would only get reimbursed based on time and parts used. All right, so again, that is much more restrictive. Now, the application process, I like to say there's an E-rate form for everything. Some of these forms, all but one, are actually required annually. All right, but again, like I said, that's my job to help you understand what these various forms are, how to fill those out. So that's E-rate in a very very quick nutshell here. If you go to my website, as I mentioned, I'm starting training next week. Everything's going to be online this year. In a normal year, I travel the state and do face-to-face training as well as webinars. This year, everything's going to be face-to-face, but my dates are listed there along with the registration links. Please plan on attending. A lot of districts in our state will use a consultant to fill out the forms for them. But even if you're using a consultant, it's really important that you attend the training so you understand, what are the rules? What student counts, do I need to give to my consultant? What list of hardware do I need to give them to say, okay, this is what I want funding on? All right. So I very strongly encourage you to attend that training.
Okay, Lori.
Here's my contact information. I'm sorry. My contact information is there. Yes, Mike.
Okay. We've got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
So to clarify, GoGuardian or Securely are not E-rate eligible?
That is correct.
And can you
we hope
repeat
that's changing, but as it stands right now.
Can you repeat what you said about reimbursements?
So with E-rate, there's actually one of two ways that you can get the money. All right. You can communicate with your service provider to say, I want a discounted bill. So let's say your discount rate is 80%. Your vendor, your service provider would bill you for 20% of the cost, and then it falls on the service provider to file the paperwork to get the reimbursement. The other option is you pay the invoice in full. All right, let's say it's $10,000. You pay the invoice. Then there's an E-rate form you would file to get the reimbursement. All right, so in this case, if you're at an 80% discount rate, the bill's $10,000, you would get back a reimbursement of $8,000. You can then take that $8,000, and if you need to go buy some extra, tablets or whatever, some Chromebooks, you could use that reimbursement to buy the Chromebooks.
Are charter schools eligible?
Yes. All schools, public, private, as long as you meet the definition of a school in our state, you qualify. E-rate covers kindergarten through grade 12. There are limitations on pre-K students. All right. With pre-K, it's only students that have been identified as special needs. All right. So if that pre-K student has an IEP, then you can include those students in your district, your count. And that those become very beneficial when you're looking at your K2, or excuse me, the Cat 2 budget.
Did you say we could purchase tablets?
You cannot get E-rate funding for the tablets, but you can purchase tablets with the reimbursement that you get. Tablets are not eligible. So if you were to say, I want E-rate to cover, these, 50 Chromebooks, they're not going to fund them outright, but you can take that reimbursement that you get. You can put that into your general fund and then spend that money however you choose once you get the reimbursement.
And the final question is a consultant necessary?
It is not. It is absolutely not. I started, I'm also a former tech cord. I was at a district for 10 years. When E-rate came into being in 1998, it really comes down to, do you have the time? That's why I encourage you to come to the training. And that's my job as state E-rate coordinator, to help you, understand the forms. If you're filling out that form and you get to a certain field and you're not sure how to answer it, contact me and I can help you answer those questions.
Once again, I want to encourage you to sign up for Lori's workshop. Having sat through several of them, they are very informative. And with that, are there any other questions for Lori? If not, we're going to move on to the next presenters. Corrine, you want to?
Yeah, I have a question. And if she said this, I'm sorry. Do you recommend schools hire a consultant? Or is it something you can do without them?
You can do it without it, most definitely.
Is that something you would help us through that process?
I can help. Well, I can help you, as far as understanding how to fill out the forms.
Okay.
Okay. I think the national average is about 50% of E-rate applicants use a consultant.
Okay.
Okay. It's one of those things that when I was at a district, the idea of paying a consultant, it's like to pay somebody a percentage of the funding that we get. I didn't want to do that. It's like, I'm gonna take the time to learn this and fill the forms out myself.
Okay, I just wanted to know if it was a possibility, because we had a consultant in the past, but we have only been paying for internet and it was not as worth it. So I just wanted to ask.
Exactly, and especially if you contract for a service, say you have a 5-year contract for your bandwidth, your internet access. That first year you get more questions about what it is you're applying for, but the remaining 4 years, it's pretty much you copy the information over. It's one of those things I would suggest try it on your own, see how it goes. Contact me if you get stuck.
Okay.
All right. I would prefer to see districts do this on their own and not lose out on that funding that they're paying somebody else to file.
Okay. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to Melissa and Lori from Info Ohio.
Lori had to jump off to another meeting here, so I did go ahead and put a presentation link in there. That'll probably be something that perhaps not for now, but for later, something you might want to refer back to here. So I'm going to share my screen. Mike, can you just confirm you can see that for me?
Yes, we can.
All right. All right, so good morning. Today I'm going to give you a little introduction to Info Ohio. My name is Melissa Salima. I'm a member of the Info Ohio instructional team. So today our focus is going to be on addressing why the knowledge of Info Ohio is important to your work. A lot of the questions that you might receive regarding Info Ohio will probably be related to access. So I'm going to help equip you with some of the knowledge about Info Ohio, the resources we provide, as Jeff kind of touched on in his presentation, how to access them, and then how to help families and educators in your districts and schools with those questions. So again, that link that I popped in the chat, it's also up here on the first slide. That's going to get you to the presentation. And then just below it, there's a hyperlink there for training links. I've actually taken all the links from that I'm going to share throughout this presentation. They're in the notes of the presentation, but I've made kind of a handy little checklist for you to have at your fingertips as you move forward in the school year. So if you have any questions, as Mike mentioned, just add them into the chat and I'll address those. I've also included my email here. You'll also have access to the ability to add in a support ticket should you have any questions or have any support issues. So feel free to grab those and I can add that in the chat at the conclusion. So a little history on Info Ohio. It began in 1995 for an affordable school library platform supported by the Ohio Information Technology Center, so there's ITCs. So think card catalog meets digital check-in and check-out. And if you're not too sure whether your school participates in the library automation services through the ITCs and Info Ohio, there's a link in that document that you can actually check and see if your school is a part of that as well, or reach out to us if that's something you're interested in being connected with your ITC. So now our primary services, decades later here, our services have grown and include more at no cost to Ohio schools, focused on improving educational equity in Ohio. And as Jeff Andrews mentioned in his presentation, the Management Council is the same organization that brings you Zoom and Gen Yes, and Info Ohio is a project of MCO ECN, the Management Council. So in addition to library services, we license digital content from vendors like Scholastic, WorldBook, and EBSCO to support Ohio learning standards, making those freely available throughout Ohio's pre-K-12 schools and education agencies. But then we also build web tools to support teaching and learning with that digital content, with a focus on inquiry and the research process. And then finally, we provide free training and professional development to support the use and integration of digital content and web tools. And so Info Ohio is known as Ohio's pre-K-12 digital library. We license that high quality digital content for use all throughout the state as for students, teachers, and parents. So that's where you're always going to want to start is at infohio.org. So something to keep in mind when we talk about access is that InfoHio does purchase the content. So IP and location are key factors in our authentication process to ensure that we are providing access to Ohio users and honor those contracts. Gaining access to the InfoHio website is going to be key to its use for all audiences. So one question we get a lot is about the username and password, and that has changed over a period of time. And we've gotten better at it as technology has increased and made some updates. So if you perhaps used InfoHio in a past position and you're just kind of getting back in to see it, there's a lot has changed in the last couple of years. We're not going to watch this video, but there's a 2-minute video that we've created that would be helpful for you to maybe watch at a later date or share with educators or parents just to understand how it is you want to be logged into the website. So a couple examples of how access.
Melissa?
Yes.
We have somebody who's tapping or typing. Would you please mute yourself? Thank you. Sorry about that, Melissa.
That's okay. So just a couple examples of some situations you could encounter. It could be a home situation where a parent or a student is trying to get to the InfoHio website and they're using a hotspot. But that device, due to the nature of hotspots, it might not be recognized as an IP address within the state of Ohio. So we collect the IP addresses for all of the schools. So if you recently changed the range of the IP addresses in your school district, that would be something we would want to update. So again, we'll talk on adding a support ticket later. It's just going to help make it so that when students go to the website, they're automatically logged in as the school district. But at home, typically you'll be automatically logged in as an InfoHio statewide user. An IP address, though, that's pulling from another state because of the internet service provider could kind of put a roadblock in there. And so understanding what the username and password is for your school or district through the video on the previous slide is one way to help kind of help on the school district end, perhaps prior to reaching out to us. And then another recent encounter I've had was a teacher that's been using InfoHio for a number of years who got a new interactive board that had an integrated web browser on it. And again, that IP address that was being pulled to that device, even though they were a Spectrum user within it was a private school, the IP address was pulling in from Colorado. And so we had to put that into our list so that she could authenticate smoothly. I also included a link on this slide that can be used to check just to see how a device is authenticating to our website. So that's kind of like the first line of defense to check and see if it's an IP issue or perhaps something else. So here's a look at the main page here, and I'm going to take a quick detour over here to the right to Parent Tools. We'll come back to the grade band buttons here in a moment. The Parent Tools section takes you over to an FAQ page, and this is just one example of but I wanted to mention that one of the new things that we've done this year is try to add in some video content to explain some of the things that we get questions about a lot. And so this is a pretty comprehensive look from the perspective of the parent or family member about what InfoHio is and how InfoHio can support learning at home, whether it's because a parent is interested in finding resources at home, but also to maybe support the work they're being asked to do with their student. And then earlier I mentioned that the digital resources and web tools are provided at no cost. So what you're seeing here is the inside of a trifolder that we like to call Teach and Learn. It breaks down the resources and tools by age and grade band, and it allows you to see what's available across the full pre-K-12 spectrum. So there are 4 grade band buttons that we took a brief look at on the previous slide on the home page that are actually represented here. You'll see all the different blocks of color that match that. And so what you'll see is that between each grade band, there's some overlap between some of the resources, like in BookFlix. So up in the ages 3-5 area, we see BookFlix represented here, but then it also appears down here in K. Underneath the title, you'll see that the grade levels span across multiple areas there. Additionally, aside from the content that we license, those web tools that I mentioned that InfoOhio creates, such as I Wonder, we'll have titles listed here in dark black print, and each of these web tools is going to uniquely provide instructional support to teachers and learning supports to students that focus on inquiry and research. So think of it as the wraparound learning piece of it, the instructional piece that goes and pairs with the digital content. So back here at the main homepage, connecting that flyer we just looked at to the resources here, we see those 4 grade band buttons, and then just below it is a button for all resources. So if you ever want to see those in kind of an A to Z format, you can click there and see the entire list of all of the licensed content and web tools in one place. So it's a handy way to browse. I'm going to take a really quick peek here at one of the grade band buttons and under K5. So if we were to click on that, we would see all of the resources that are available to K5 students. Certainly a student can click on any one of those buttons. This is just an example. So in this section, as we kind of relate our conversation to access, I'm going to show you a couple things here. 2 resources that are quite popular because we're getting digital text into the home and the classroom. So ebooks are very popular in the state of remote and hybrid learning. Some of you might know Scholastic's BookFlix as a resource that we offer for digital text. We also, just at the beginning of October, we're very excited to announce the addition of the Highlights Library. So some of you might remember the magazines from your childhood, maybe those hidden picture puzzles. First state to provide the Highlights Library. It has a little over 2,500 ebooks that's available in an open access format. Both of these libraries feature fiction and nonfiction text, read aloud capabilities, and videos. And just a little known fact that Highlights is actually based out of Columbus, so this is an Ohio company. So what I'd really like to focus on here, aside from the digital resources that are available, are those I buttons. So to get to one of these resources, you could simply click on any of the gray buttons and go straight to Highlights Library. But the I buttons, where the arrows are pointing, are going to take you to an information button. So a lot of times teachers want to provide a link directly to the resource that they want students to use. They want them to not have to go to InfoOhio, then click on K5, and then click on Highlights Library. So understanding that this is actually the landing page in order to pass that authentication through, like the username and password piece from InfoOhio licensing that content. The link that's on the I button is the link that you would want to place in Clever, in a learning management system, on a website, to take students directly there so that they automatically get that username password piece passing through kind of on the back end. And I've also provided a link that gives you access to all the links associated with each resource. So that's pretty handy. And there's also a video link that explains a little more in detail about the process of using correct links when sharing resources. Then you're also going to see some buttons here. These are pretty standard across all of our information pages. The bookmark button will get you the link that I referred to as on that list. Then they also have the option of sharing directly to Google Classroom. And then the LMS direct link, it's standard on all of our pages. It's very similar to the bookmark page. It's essentially the permalink associated with it. Then you can click open to go to the resource just as if you were on the previous K5 page, clicking directly on BookFlix. So just a quick snapshot of the newest resource, Highlights Library. Again, 2,500 titles. It makes browsing and searching really easy. There's a correlation guide for levels across here. And for those of you that love those hidden picture puzzles, the reward area is always completely open. And there are dozens of hidden picture puzzles to kind of relive childhood there. And since this is so new, you may be the very first to deliver this news back to your school or district. So I would encourage you to do so. Another quick look on how this might look at home or at school. Links that teachers are sharing in assignments and students are having trouble accessing them, or at school, a teacher receiving feedback from students that they can't access the article to schoolwork that was maybe assigned in an LMS like Schoology. So associated with this slide, there is a link to a video that talks more about permalinks, and a little bit different than the resource links previously. That's going to get you directly to the resource, but within a lot of these resources, there's a way to link kids directly to a certain article or a certain ebook. And so that talks more specifically about how to get links to very specific things within each resource. Something that's very handy for you as a tech coordinator, because you're juggling and wearing a lot of different hats here. The technical help FAQ page is going to offer support with questions related to access, some of the obstacles with that districts face when they're using filters and firewalls. So this screenshot here just represents a couple questions that are on this page. Sometimes certain InfoHio resources or pieces of the content within those resources can get caught behind district firewalls and filters. So there's a list of domains further down on this page that InfoHio recommends districts exclude to avoid blocking user access. And we've this page to include several links that concern access to the highlights library. They have a lot of images that they use a content provider for. And so there are several links that would need to be excluded or whitelisted. So at the bottom of the home page, and so from the very top we started, now we're looking at the very bottom, lots of things in between there. The very bottom of the page has the quick links, makes it easy to locate a lot of those main areas available across our website. For instance, we talked about the tools that InfoHio develops to support that digital content. Those are all listed here separately, but then you can get to the all resources from here at the bottom. And then the other thing would be under support, you'll notice there's a remote learning. There's an FAQ about remote learning that could be great for both educators and for families. So we are definitely here to support you and as easy a way as possible. So we do have our own support ticket system. You can click on InfoHio support at the bottom. There's also a little question mark hiding up in the top right hand of our main homepage there. So you can click that and it'll walk you through placing a ticket for a specific resource, or perhaps you have some feedback or a question about something. We can take it all within that system, and then someone from the technical or instructional team will reach out to you to address your question. Quick mention here, when Jeff talked about remote edX, there's still a lot of moving scope of the project that will be called the Remote edX Exchange that he mentioned. And InfoHio is going to be doing a lot of work with that. It's going to serve as the platform for sharing remote edX supports, services, the curriculum content, and tools with end users. And InfoHio is going to directly support three main areas that have to do with the supporting the centralized shared venue for that standards aligned curriculum area. That's really going to touch on hybrid and blended learning environments. So I'm not going to spend time talking about that today. That's a little outside of the scope of the introduction, but on October 27th, when we have the entire technology coordinators meeting for the whole state, I'll explain a little bit more work on the project. For those of you that are familiar with some of the resources that we work with, iSearch, Educator Tools, and OpenSpace will be a part of this platform, and we will be supporting the training aspects of it, as well as some of the support. I'm actually going to fast forward here to the end. This is, again, our support address here. I'll pop my email into the chat just in case you have some specific questions about the presentation today. And then let's see are there any questions, Mike?
I don't think there are, but that was a great presentation of some valuable resources for schools to use.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. If you have questions, Melissa will be putting her link in there. We have somebody with their camera on. Janaea, is that to mute your camera or turn your camera off? And with that, we're going to get ready for Jan Rogers from OCALI, or the Ohio Center for Autism and Low Incidence. We can see your presentation, Jan. You're good to go.
Okay, do I need to put it in presentation mode, or are you also seeing the sidebar?
We're seeing the sidebar.
Okay, let me see if I can switch that out.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, how's that?
All right, you're ready to go.
Okay, great. All right, well, good morning, everyone. And I'm Jan Rogers. I'm the AT and AIM Center Program Director at OCALI. And so we're going to talk about more specifically supports, technology supports for students with disabilities. Our center is a center that we focus on creating and disseminating accessible materials, and also offering specialized trainings and technical support on how to use accessible materials and assistive technologies. So again, we're looking more at those students, the population of students that have disabilities, and the supports that we can provide to them. So we're going to kind of run through a lot of resources that we have on our webpage. This is just an introductory level, so we're going to be breezing through these pretty quickly. And let me check my time here so I know how much I have. 10, 23. Okay. All right. So our homepage is ataim.org, ataem.org. And from there, we're going to start looking at some of the AT supports. So one of the first ones I want to show you is the Student Inventory for Technology Supports, or SIFs. And why I'm showing this to you is you may have teams who come to you within your district who are asking for specialized technologies for students with disabilities. And one of the things that I would hope you would help them to do is to maybe make sure that they've conducted some type of assessment for that student to determine what the student needs. And if they're kind of at a loss for how to do that, if they go through some of our assessment resources that we have on our website, in addition to using the Student Inventory for Technology Supports, which is a survey tool, it should help them to get to the type of device that they might need to support that student, and to make sure it's a device that actually will be workable for the student. What we found are that teams struggle a little bit with trying to match up the actual technology features that a student needs and what the student's needs, strengths, environments, and tasks requirements are. So this is a tool to just kind of help bridge that small little part of the assessment process. When you get into the tool, you can select among a variety of domains, communication, math. So based on what the student is struggling with, they can choose a different area. Go into that area and then sit and talk through all the questions. We disclaimer this with, we know that we could never have created all the questions that a team may need to have, but we're hoping that it kind of spurs them to be thinking about all those questions and to generate their own questions. When you finish it, what you end up with are a list of technology features that may be useful to the student. So, and again, we're not claiming that all of those features that are provided are things that would be good for the student, but at least it provides a talking point for the team and for you, if you're involved as a part of the team, to kind of think through and talk about all those different features and whether they might work for the student or not. It does not take you to the level of selecting the actual technology, but what it does is it gives you features that you can then enter into the tech matrix. Or there are a couple other tools that are out there that will also let you enter in assistive technology features that will then generate the actual tool. Google searches are also great for that. So next thing I want to show you are the assistive technology internet modules. If it turns out that you have an interest in assistive technology, or if you're finding that you need more information to share back with teams, or a place to send teams to get more information about assistive technologies, the assistive technology internet modules were all designed so that people could at any time go in and gather bits of information about AT. There are 50 different modules. They're on many different topics, many different curriculum areas: reading, writing, math, organization, self-care skills. It's if you can think it, it's probably in there. And those are designed to just give people more information. In addition to the 50 modules that we have, there's they're also bundled. So those are all free. Anybody can use them anytime. If you'd like graduate credit for going through the modules, we have them bundled as a group, and we have 5 different graduate courses through Ashland that use the ATIM modules, and it's fully online. So it's a good way to get some additional knowledge about technology in a specialized area, and maybe to meet some of your certification renewal requirements. Just to mention about the Ohio DD Council, we have a grant through them. It's a 2-year AT grant, and I don't know if any of you are also, in addition to your district, supporting your local county boards of developmental disabilities too. But this is focused primarily on them. The focus is currently mostly on adults. However, that will probably change as time goes on with things, the adults that they serve. Many of the things that we're doing and building are also things that will support the students and kids in their programs as well. So we will be producing 4 adult-focused ATIM, 2 adult-focused SIFs, and developing a community of practice. And we're also doing a lot of training things with them. We currently have 2 training programs going with Mike Murata and Kelly Fauner on communication and on just general AT assessment. Again, if you're interested in learning more about AT, every year we host an AT conference and vendor fair. We just had that in September. It's also co-sponsored by the state support teams, the 16 state support teams that are around the state. And those conference and vendor fairs this particular year was all virtual. So you could jump on, listen to some of the vendors, the AT vendors, learn about their products. So it's a good way to learn and get a little bit more information about assistive technology if you have an interest in that.
Jan,
Yes.
is there links to those presentations?
I sent the presentation to you, so I don't know. I can have a link created.
Well, I mean, the ones for the conference.
Oh, the conference. Yeah, the conference. Let me take it back one. There's a website there. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
My menu bar was in the way. I'm sorry.
Nope, that's fine. So yeah, if you check out the website, we probably won't post anything on the next one for next September until probably, I'm going to guess maybe late summer or maybe even early summer. So don't expect the site to change, but you can get a flavor for what occurred for this year. All right, we have a AT lending library. So if you have students who are and teachers who would like to purchase things for students, we always recommend that teachers and teams do a trial of whatever they're thinking about purchasing. So we offer that opportunity through our lending library. It's all browsable online. You can find devices. We will ship them to the doorstep of the school. We'll send a call tag through UPS to have it picked up too. When the 3 weeks is over, it's a 3-week loan. If you need it for longer than that, we can loan it for an additional 3 weeks, but you need to contact us before the end of your loan period. And as long as nobody else has requested that item. But again, it gives a good opportunity for teams to try something out with a student, collect the data, make sure that the technology is really supporting the student in the way that they would like. And we have many different things in our library. I think at last count, we had over 1,000 items. Some things are bundled in what we call kits. So if you know a student struggling with reading or math or writing, or they need computer access, we have a kit which gives them multiple items in that kit to try with the student. We also have FM systems for students who have hearing impairments. We have AT assessment tools, and then there are general books, early literacy Braille books, and Ohio State practice tests that are in Braille as well. And now we're going to talk a little bit about accessible educational materials. And those are the things that when students need an alternate format of an item, we have the ability to produce that for Ohio schools, or we will source it for you. Most often we're able to source it through the National Instructional Materials Accessibility Center, the NIMAC. And if we're not able to source it there and in some of the other LUI databases and other places, then, or out of our own clearinghouse, then we'll produce that for you through our production center. Alternate formats, we're talking about Braille, large print, and digital, and not all digital is accessible. So things that you may have that are digital, If it has not been created accessibly, may not be actually accessible to students who are using assistive technologies to use those materials. What you need to know is the reason why we're talking about accessible educational materials is, unless you're looking at hard copy Braille or hard copy large print, the access of accessible educational materials is through technology too. So a student might use a screen reader, or a student might use text to speech in order to access these materials. So there's usually an accompanying piece of technology that goes along with accessible educational materials. For students who are blind, there's a federal quota registration that our office does every year for all Ohio schools. And what we're trying to do is register all students who are blind by the definition of blind. And when those students are registered, then the federal government, through the American Printing House for the Blind, provides the Department of Education with funding then that we distribute through the purchase of materials for students. So it's important that we identify all students who are blind so that we can provide that service to them and provide those supplemental funds to districts for the purchase of materials. Materials can be specialized formats of accessible materials. It can also be the accompanying technologies. So if somebody needs a CCTV, or somebody needs a magnifier, electronic magnifier, those kinds of things are things that can be purchased through federal quota. So that's a good question to ask. If somebody comes to you and says, we need a CCTV for a student who's blind, you can ask them, has that student been registered through federal quota? If they check and find out that they have been registered, then we are able to help them in purchasing those items. So rather than your district paying for it, we could help with that. I also mentioned that we have a Braille and large print clearinghouse, so we'll source sometimes things through our clearinghouse. Here you see just books, but that includes the assistive technologies too. We also have a BEST grant, which is we've had it for 15 years. It's a federal grant. It is primarily a training grant, and it's specifically training teachers and how to deliver instruction in Braille, and then to provide support to the technology associated with Braille. So professional development, webinars. We have some tips and tricks, short troubleshooting videos. Those might be useful to you. A document archive of our training materials. Also a place where teachers and others can log in for technical assistance requests. And we also do local Braille production centers, which will be of interest to you. So the Braille production centers are located throughout the state. Every year we offer up 3 scholarships for a district to receive a Braille production center in their school. We currently have, I believe, 29 Braille production centers around the state in different school districts. So you will want to check our website and find out whether your school district has a Braille production center in it. If it does, you may find that you are being asked to help and support that Braille production center. When a district receives a center, they receive a Braille embosser. They receive a scanner if they don't have a scanner already available to them. Several pieces of software, MathType, Abby Fine Reader, PerkyDuck, and then Duxbury Braille translation software. And so what these Braille production centers allow districts to do is to produce their own Braille for Student hard copy Braille, rather than coming to our production center to have those things done. And what might actually functionally occur is they still may come to our production center for books, like their textbooks, but it's always those incidental materials that teachers might need in the classroom, like a handout or a worksheet or something in Braille. So this gives an opportunity for the district to be able to produce that on the spot and kind of on the fly. So know that we will also continue to support, so you can reach out to us. If it is one of our Braille production centers, we have a technical assistance specialist who would come out to the district to help out with that. He might also be able to just talk you through things over the phone. So keep that in mind as well. And that's our tips and tricks and the website link for that. And then just for general accessibility support, there's been a lot of discussion in the last probably year or two about website accessibility for both districts and state education. agencies. Department of Justice was kind of hot on the trail of looking at the accessibility of those things in our learning management systems. So I'm just referring you to a couple of resources that we have on our Ocali website. One is the Here to Help video gallery, 4 Minutes at 4, and some of our curated resources, which can help in building either accessible websites or creating accessible documents. That also, if you're putting documents on your website, it also applies to that too. There are some resources to help you kind of determine whether your things are accessible or not accessible. Additionally, we're working now in partnership with ODE and the Office for Exceptional Children to produce an Inspire Ed series. It's a weekly webinar, on-demand training, and some of that is also directed towards the accessibility issue and how do you create things that are accessible for students. So I think that's it. Yep, that is it. And I'm open for questions if you would like to offer questions.
Right. Jan, I don't think we have any questions for you, but I wanted to thank you for sharing those resources with us, especially the accessibility part at the end. I think it's very helpful to districts, especially when they're looking at their websites. And with that, if anybody have any questions for Jan, they can email her later on if they think of something. We're going to move now to the Access for Learning and Larry Fruth. And as soon as you're ready, Larry, you can see your your presentation, and you're good to go.
Okay, thanks everybody. I appreciate the time today. My name is Larry Fruth. I'm the executive director of a community called the Access for Learning community. And as our special interest group, which I'll talk about in a little bit, the Student Data Privacy Consortium, which incidentally, you're all members. So we're thrilled to have the opportunity today to speak to you and talk about some resources that can help you right away. We're going to touch on two really concepts today, and that is interoperability and privacy. You're all aware of a lot of the privacy laws you have to juggle. If you're not, you're getting up to speed and hearing about them pretty quickly, whether it be, those oriented toward vendors like the COPPA laws or the ones oriented toward you, which would be state and FERPA and HIPAA laws as well. Not so much of HIPAA, but more of the FERPA rules around it. And what we do as a community, which I'll talk about just in a few minutes, is address some of these as a community and help you provide some resources. But the one that we focus on more than anything else in the K-12 sector is FERPA. And FERPA is basically the law that's talking about, one of the biggest things that we address is when they have the school business official exemption that allows application providers, i.e. vendors who you partner with, to be able to access student data that you provide them to perform a function that you can't provide. So again, many of you know FERPA was written in the early 70s before there was much of the technology that you're all using today. And so it really has a lot of needed updates to it, and they talk about it every year, and it hasn't been updated much, but it does need updated in a lot of different areas, including the school business official, which it does state you need a data privacy agreement with all of those vendors that you're sharing data with. So a little bit of the level setting. Again, I mentioned my name is Larry Fruth. I'm the executive director, but I also was the state ed tech director for the state of Ohio for a few years at the Ohio Department of Education. I was also associate director for curriculum and instruction. And back in 1990, I came in the early 2000s, but back in 1997, a group of school districts and vendors got together to say, listen, we're not going to enter our kids' names into these growing number of applications we have multiple times and do it wrong a few of the times. And so the vendors were really pushed to say, hey, use a standard that we all can move the data between these applications. So if I put Johnny Smith in my student information system, that should be able to feed to my grade book, to my food service, to my bus transportation, to my curriculum, to my LMS, not much at that time, but to feed all those different applications. And so there was a community nonprofit started called the SIF Association, now called the Access for Learning Community. But they developed blueprints that are free on the website for vendors to pull down to standardize what the data that moves between applications. So it doesn't reach into any applications. It's sort of like if you envision the United Nations, where everybody wears the headsets and you can listen to the different languages converted into your language. That's what this spec actually does. And again, we have about 3,000 members, and I'll talk about the membership in a minute here, but we have about 3,000 members. And again, there's school districts, which all of you are members through the support of Mike at the Department of Education and other folks there, as well as the Learn 21 group, which is the COSIN affiliate in the state. And so basically that A4L side, that nonprofit sort of manages sort of the technical side of the house. But about 5 years ago, we heard from a lot of our members, which again are school districts, state agencies, federal agencies, ministries of education, as well as the vendors, which is a unique community that you're a part of because the vendors are sitting at the table, and to address their pain points around student data privacy. There's a lot of great things that were going on at the time from folks like COSIN and ISTE and a lot of different CETA, SIA that all were talking about privacy, but they were telling schools and CIOs like you where you needed to be. And what we were hearing is we don't know how to get there. So what we did was we started, Steve Smith from Cambridge Schools in Massachusetts and I really started this special interest group under the Access for Learning banner. So it's still part of the nonprofit, but it has its own governance, it has its own membership. You're members of both actually. But basically what we did was we took a year asking CIOs like yourself and vendors, what are your pain points? And so we addressed and used some of Steve's works in Cambridge to actually start this Student Data Privacy Consortium. So as you look at it, A4L deals with interoperability where everybody can get the data, and the Student Data Privacy deals with privacy so no one can get the data. So what we're trying to do as a community of 3,000 members, which you're a member of, is get it right, get the right information at the right time. And the new role that we've been talking about within our community, your community, is interoperability and privacy. Now everybody's in the space talking about interoperability. You don't even know what the definition is. And everybody's in the space talking about student privacy, and you don't even know what the definition is. So our community is unique, not only that we have end users and vendors sitting there, but it's the only community that has addressing issues and support around interoperability and privacy. So what you're going to hear more and more in some of the things you're going to get emails and updates and things like that through the community because of your statewide membership is this concept of connected and secure effective learning systems. So, we talk about what we're trying to do is safely connect all these apps and have all these apps talk to one another. So the two aspects of this community is making that safe connection and also having those interoperability, or that you demanding your vendors to use technical specification, maybe it's CIF, maybe it's another technical specification, to get data to move in between those applications seamlessly. So this and did about a year of talking to CIOs like you. We basically talked about, well, what do you need help with? And so we really sort of came up with this must address list: vetting, contracting, app management, integration, secure data exchange, some quality control, and then some professional development and professional learning opportunities. So in the Student Data Privacy Consortium, which again you're a member of, we took Cambridge's work and we started to spread it across the country. They had 50 districts in Massachusetts, including Boston, using the same data privacy agreement with every vendor. And you can imagine they love that. The districts didn't have to modify these data privacy agreements. They just stole from each other, and they used it with every vendors. The vendors pushed like heck at the beginning, but gave up and just started saying, okay, in Massachusetts, we got to agree with this data privacy agreement. We thought we could move that across the country and leverage that very quickly across the country. I sort of knew we wouldn't, being a state guy in Mike's shop there at ODE. So we started these things called alliances, where there were organizations in each state. A lot of them, the COSIN, ISTE affiliates, a couple state departments of education, and a couple of school districts basically start these statewide alliances that basically gather the schools in their states. What are our pain points? The first thing we're going to do with is trying to develop a statewide data privacy agreement. So in California, it's led by the ed tech agency. There's a state ed tech agency called SITE, and they have 1,000 districts with all of their vendors using the same data privacy agreement. Texas is the same. Ohio community is really, it's supported by ODE, but it's actually being sort of operationalized by Learn 21, which is the COSIN affiliate, which is common across the alliances. A lot of the COSIN affiliates and are good partnerships for these alliances. And Ohio does not have a data privacy agreement because they were waiting on this next conversation I'll bring you to, and we were working on a national one. But there's a resource registry I'll just show you how to get to, and you can get a member. Actually, if you go to the resource area, you're going to see how you can sign up if you haven't signed up already. We have, I think, quite a few districts dozens and dozens of districts in Ohio already using some of these tools. But there's a resource registry that helps you manage your apps and do all those aspects that we just talked about. And actually, we talked about our membership. We actually have communities in Australia, New Zealand, North America, and actually the UK as well that you're a member of. And in this registry, which could help you manage your apps, because the last district I was at in Ohio, we use spreadsheets. That's how we were sort of saying, what apps do we have? And then I know you don't know where all the apps are in your district, but this registry has 8,000 schools represented already in it and 5,000 applications with vendor agreements that you can go in. You don't have to register. You don't even need an account for it, but you will get an account if you want one because you're members. The registry here in a minute, but the registry really leverages the work that was done in Cambridge. And again, it's freely available to you if you want to use it. So what it can do is it has a mechanism, a widget that you can actually put on the front of your school website somewhere that says a teacher wants to request XYZ application. Well, I know I was a teacher and I also was our IT director at our last district. Of course, I was a 6 period a day science teacher with that title, but I know that I always downloaded apps and, forgiveness, never permission was our motto at our school district because we knew it was going to take too long for me to sign off on it. So this actually has a nice workflow that you can have the teacher request an app. And one of the reasons why they don't ask for permission is because they know it's going to go into a black hole. Well, in this registry tool that you can access, it has an approval process. So you can actually set up, where does that request go? Well, it goes to me as the CIO, CTO, or it can go to finance, or it can go to curriculum, or it can go to legal, or it can go to wherever you want it to go. And you can set up those steps however you want those steps set up when that request comes to you, or in this network, in the system that's built, a tool that's built into it. The nice thing about that is the teacher time that it moves on to the next step, so they know where it is in process. Then what you can do is use the data privacy agreement working, and there's a contract application management. So you don't have to use spreadsheets anymore. You can use your spreadsheet, download it into this tool, and then have access to it. It has public information on it, like the name of the app, is there an agreement, and you actually have a PDF of the agreement if there is one, what grade level it's being used for. Then it has some private areas of the spread of the tool that let you say who's our contact, how much do we pay. But the nice thing about that is you can put that widget on the front of your website as well that allows all people on your public school website to see what apps you're using, to see the agreement you have with them, to see when they were approved and what level and what grade you're using them. So you can go right to the Cambridge website or many websites across the country, and it pulls from this tool right on the front of their website. And I'll show you how to get to the website and sort of check that out. But again, I had vendors complaining, as you can imagine. I've never been a vendor. We're a nonprofit. I've always been with nonprofits or schools, but they complained, oh man, we had, now we got 50 different contracts. We got a deep data privacy agreements. And I said, well, you had 16,000 before because you had 16,000 districts that we work with across the country, including all those in different countries. So it sort of came full circle. I mentioned we thought we could use the Massachusetts DPA across the country. We found out, no, it had to have state specific, but then the community leaders, those alliance leaders of our 30 different states now, came back and said, why are we all using a different one when they all look the same? So we took about 1.5 years and 2 years, and we just rolled out last month what we call the National Data Privacy Agreement. So basically what you can do now is look at an agreement that's being used across the country. Your alliance, your state alliance might add something to it, but not the body of the agreement, but on the end of the agreement. And we're already talking in Ohio, Learn 21's reviewed it. We've had some schools review it, some schools legal, and also some other legal, vendor legal. And there's nothing to be added right now for Ohio's National Data Privacy Agreement. It looks like it's about ready to go since Ohio doesn't have one. So you'll be able to access that and take a look at it if you're interested in starting to use it. So we have this now National Data Privacy Agreement, and the components are very simple. There's a cover page, there's options, the options you see here on the right-hand side that I put in there. It's just a page that says, are there state-specific changes? That would all be in Exhibit G. So California has to add a couple because California law had some additional things that they need to. If you as a CIO, CTO want to add something, you would add that into Exhibit H. but nothing gets added into the section of standard clauses. All those clauses are used across the country. We're not going to redline them. We're not going to do changes to them. But where you can make some changes are in the exhibits down below. And the nice thing, if you haven't been aware of this, is another exhibit that's really been beneficial. The vendors absolutely love it, as well as the schools, is Exhibit E, and that's called a general offer of terms. And so here's how it goes. Mike's school district has a contract with XYZ, and they agree to use the Ohio privacy agreement. Well, I'm a school district. I get a notice of that in my email saying, hey, this company just signed the Ohio agreement with Mike. Do you want to piggyback off that? And you can piggyback off those same agreed upon terms with a one-page signature. And it's just something called a general offer of terms across the state. They love it. The vendors love it because it got them 1,000 school districts right away. And it makes school districts very easy because if everybody signs on to the privacy agreement, you're all using the same terminology. So you can take a look at that privacy agreement. Sort of switching gears and looking at that, that's the securing part of it. Switching gears and going to the connecting part of this is what we just released, and I'm not going to go through the video. I know we're pressed for time. A very short video on our newest blueprint that's out there, the interoperable blueprint. It's called Unity. And what Unity has in it, it has the most comprehensive K-12 data model. You guys are actually using SIF, which is Unity as a SIF specification. You're actually using it to some of your state reporting that you use, and PowerSchool and some others. Also use it to move some data between applications, but if you're not well versed in technical standards, that's fine. But the newest Unity proposal takes a lot of new additional things like privacy on the wire, a new rostering that's being very popular because one roster we're hearing has some shortfalls in it, which is another standard. I'm proud because my brother's a special ed coordinator in the state. I live in New Albany still. My brother's in Northwest Ohio, but we have individual education plans. We brought together IEP experts from across the country, including the vendors, and it has a standard for your IEP. I have 2 children that we adopted that are on IEPs. And I'm passionate about this one because I want them to stop being just a reporting tool and a learning tool. I think we just need to elevate the conversation around those IEPs. And so we had experts do that. And so it has also Common Education Data Standards, which is a federal. EDFACS is how the states report to the federal, which is federal. But the nice thing's in the middle, that the SIF3 infrastructure actually is unique. It actually carries a REST-based infrastructure that carries this data over the wire securely. And New Zealand, Australia, the UK, and North America, all using the same infrastructure, but different data models across that infrastructure. I'll just skip to this. Now we're talking about on the ground, which you'll be seeing pretty quickly. We'd like to try this in Ohio pretty quickly, is what Massachusetts and Cambridge is doing. We're developing, basically learning from our Australian partners, how to develop these things called data hubs, and basically using any application with any standard they want to use to get into your district and show you, but you set the rules on how they connect. And we have these things called privacy object documents into today, but you can actually check them out on the website. Basically enforces your privacy rules around that before they can even get into your ecosystem, and then they're actually using that to do state reporting. So just quick in summary, and I'll give you the website then and some resources. And again, your members on behalf of the Department of Education, so use these resources, just being a part of the community. But connect, demand using interoperability and technical standards in your work, and there's a link there to some examples of, if you're putting out an RFP, put this in your RFP for your vendors. And again, the vendors are members of the community as well. Secure by looking at that National Data Privacy Agreement. I know Learn 21 has a conference coming up, and they're pulling together people to sort of sign off on an Ohio National Data Privacy Agreement, and then just be a part of the work. We'd love to have you a part of the conversations. Of those areas of impact, I put in a bunch of hyperlinks across both the A4L and SDPC side for resources for you. And basically what we're trying to do is this. So this is what takes all of our time, is setting common expectations between you, the customers, the end users, and the providers, the vendors out there. And you have to include in that conversation, get these things into your ecosystem safely, securely, and in a way that they can exchange data. You need to deal with interoperability, and you need to deal with privacy. You can't deal with each one separate. So there's my contact information. Real quickly, I will, if I can real quick, Mike, I will switch over to my shared. Mike, can you see the website now?
Yeah.
So if you want to check out the tools very quickly, Here's the website. It's just sdprivacy.a4l.org. Again, here's all the things I talked about. Here's the NDPA. Here's that resource registry. I really encourage you to look. Ohio's already got a bunch. Have your own site there in Ohio. You can actually get into it, that resource registry. Actually, if you want your account, the Resource Center here has presentations. There's actually an Ohio presentation that we did last spring, so it's all in there. Shows you how to upload in the resource registry. And again, get in there and just see if it's going to be something that would really save you time and energy, and that's the goal for it. So you can get in there and actually search this database by tool, by agreement, by state, by district, by school. Here's Ohio's Alliance. So basically, that's the place where you guys would get started. So happy to help in any way, Mike, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions for Larry? Hopefully we'll learn some more in the meeting later on, Larry, about some of these issues.
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, and with that, we're going to go to Paul and Dave with the Ohio Distance Learning. Gentlemen, you ready?
Yes, we are. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Dave.
I think Paul's going to share the presentation.
Yep, give me 1 second here.
Okay.
Alrighty, is that coming across?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Alrighty, well, thanks everybody for letting us be a part of today. And Dave and I are going to do what we can to help get you guys back on schedule here. We don't have a tremendous amount of stuff to share, but we do have a nice resource that we'd like to pass your way to help make you guys be champions with your teachers and your curriculum staff. So we think we've got some nice things for you that you'll be able to take advantage of. Go ahead, Dave, let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. My name's Dave Stein. I work for the LACA ITC, and I'm also the current chair of the Ohio Distance Learning Association.
And my slide doesn't seem to be there anymore, so I would just go ahead and just say I'm Paul Ronis.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all good. And I'm the vice president of the association. So now I'll turn it over to you, Dave.
Okay, the Ohio DLA, we are a group of distance learning experts and those who want to be involved with distance learning. Our group has been around for over 20 years, and formally, about 8 or 9 years ago, we decided to formally organize as a state chapter of the United States Distance Learning Association. And we did that so that we would gain notoriety within schools and within the legislative circles in the state, so that we could try to bring more distance learning opportunities to students statewide. As I said, we are a group of distance learning experts ranging from schools, educational support agencies such as ITCs, and ESCs and EdTechs, and content providers, and a lot of which you see listed here. These are organizations that develop virtual field trips specifically to connect into schools and students. And a lot of our members have daily course programs that are taught through video. And so, as you may imagine, we've been doing this for some years, and as the pandemic has come about, it's kind of brought the platform that we represent to the forefront. So fortunately, we're able to share some of our experiences and provide service to help bring people up to speed. Because we are part of the Management Council, the MCOECN, they have provided membership for all ITCs. So all of the schools within the state are members, and so we're here to try to get people involved and make people aware of what we're doing. We do a lot of PD. We do lots of training opportunities and sharing of content programs, and we also support the OETC, the Ohio Educational Technology Conference Distance Learning Strain. I think you're going to hear more about that today. So thanks, Paul.
Thank you. And now I just realized that mine was the next slide. So, you know, if a good presenter would have had this all queued up and a view ahead of time, and well, you got me. So I've already done that part there. Awesome stuff. So as we start to talk about these content providers, and what we're looking at is, you know, the old term used to be virtual field trip, and it's not really a great name for that. And they are content providers. They take the expert resources and tools that we wish we had and their knowledge base and provide lessons for your classroom teachers. They will take over the period for that time and run a lesson for your classes. Now, as we always tell our teachers, that doesn't mean that that's now a prep that you can leave and go have coffee, but it is actually a great way to enhance your curriculum through a museum or a national park. And so there are some really great ones out there, and they range anywhere from, you could spend $150 to nothing for sessions. So there's some great resources that are out there. This is just a quick snapshot from one of the sessions we did over the summer, where we met with the National Battlefield of Antietam, and having an opportunity for their staff to be able to connect with us over the summer when we were concerned about, you know, would we be still locked down during the summertime. We actually created a series of national park events for our families to be able to participate in. And there's a little snapshot of one of our kiddos asking a question about the Battle of Antietam. So it's a great opportunity for them who maybe they'd never be able to even get to that location, to be able to take a virtual visit with them and talk to their ranger staff and learn more about it. So those are just a kind of a quick overview about those. The National Park Service, though, is really a unique group because they've got a tremendous amount of content that's available that for you to be able to connect to, whether it's sessions on, you know, with the Rocky Mountains talking about bears, to doing virtual dives in their lakes and rivers or ocean areas, depending on who it is. So there's some really powerful things that you could bring to your classroom. And one of the hard parts about it is finding them because you can either go to every darn national park and do a search for distance learning on it, which is just not a whole lot of fun, or you could actually, we included this in our presentation, something that I made a copy of this. We actually created this for our teachers, and it's just a very quick list of all of the national parks that do have, programs available, and some of our favorite ones that we have placed in there. So, for example, Life of the Civil War Soldier with the Antietam National Battlefield was a real popular one. Arcadia National Park was another one that we did quite a few ones on habitats and weather wonders and all kinds of really nice programs for grades K through 2, middle school, upper elementary, and even some great stuff with the high school ones. We actually did a session on Civil War medicine for high school students, and we were pleasantly surprised how many kids we had actually volunteer in the summer to participate in that, and some great questions they had for them. So it was some really some neat stuff that they could see how crude the paramedics were at that time, and to really learn a whole lot about what it was like for that area. So in here, this is a pretty good document that you guys can share with your staff as well as your curriculum people, and you can see it's just alphabetical, just a roll through of how many different types of people there are and the kind of programs they have. Sleeping Bear Dunes is another one I strongly recommend. They have a really good, strong presenter over there. And again, it's going to be give and take on their presenters. Some of them are really strong in the developing of their content. Other ones are just kind of there like, well, what do you want to know? And so communication with them is really important to have prior to spending your time of being able to connect to them. An important thing also to understand that they can use any platform for these connections. So if you're a Teams site, if you're a Zoom site, if you have a way of making Microsoft, making Meet connect to them, as long as you're the one setting up the conference, they are willing, more times than not, willing to connect through it. They are not, many of them are not allowed to host Zoom, but they love to connect through it. And so that's just a piece where you just have to be the host, and they'll be able to connect, share their content and cameras through it. And most of them are very, very experienced with it. So as we look at these pieces, I just also want to share it's not only just the national parks. There are some other great organizations that also are not charging for their programs. The National Archives, we used to joke around about it. They're not charging, but we pay for it every year around April with your income tax. They are a free provider that have some amazing resources that you have. And they are actually very flexible with their connections too, where you can actually reach out to them and share with some of the items that maybe are particularly important for you. So an example with that is prior to COVID, we had planned on working with the National Archives for our students who were unable to attend the DC trip. So our goal with that project was to take the itinerary of our Washington, DC trip, share that with the National Archives so that they could pull resources out and address many things about those areas that our students were going to be visiting. So the students who were not able to make the trip could at least have somewhat of an experience and be able to have some things to enhance their curriculum from that. Go ahead. I think we have somebody unmuting their microphone there. Or is that you, David?
No, but Paul, I'm going to add just a couple of things here. And I don't want to overstep your bounds, but we're just letting you know that these are free opportunities. There are lots of paid opportunities as well, and these programs are designed toward educational standards. They're designed as supplements to in-class instruction, and the content providers now they're changing their programs to be able to work in a hybrid mode, to be able to connect individual students as well as traditional classrooms. So they're adapting quite well. I'm going to just throw out here too, we don't have in our slides, but mention CILC as an organization, CILC.org. We'll put it in the chat. It is kind of the Facebook or Yellow Pages of content. And all of these, I would expect all the providers that Paul has shared are listed on CILC. This is where you can go to find just about anything, whether it's a program or whether it's a collaboration. Paul, I hope I didn't take anything away from what you were going to say.
No, not at all. I was going to just share again that most of these providers have adapted to connecting to students in a hybrid mode or a full online mode, so they understand that you're going to be connecting to them in their homes. We actually have this week, several of our classes are going to be connecting to the Mariners Museum to be able to do some social studies lessons, and they are doing that on their remote days. And so it is important, though, to keep that communication with the content provider in place. David, I pulled up the CILC website. Is that showing for you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, thank
Perfect.
you.
And so I'll just do a quick walkthrough of that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just by going into interactive, you see here, interactive learning, finding a program, and then you can go ahead and see a list of how many of these are on here. Only a few of the national parks are on here. I just want to make sure people understand that. There are some, but most of them are not for some reason still. So that's why we provided that link to a document that you could share. I could also just do a search, and because I'm, can't type forever, for very well when I'm on the spot, I can just go ahead and type in rocks, for example, and see if I can scroll down the page here. It'll give you a list of all the different programs. So we'll take a look at this one from the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. You can go ahead and click on the link for that. Here you'll see that there is a cost for the person's time for that session, the grades it's supporting, contact of who you can contact for more information, and then where I think the most important part is the program detail, where it will actually give you a format of what's going to be taking place and the standards that is going to be hitting. And it's especially if you're for a program that you're paying, not that time is not as important and sometimes even more important than the cost. It's have the communication with that provider to make sure that they are providing what you want them to be providing, the parts of the standards that your staff need to have hit. Almost 99% of these providers are happy to have that conversation with the teachers prior because they want you to be happy. They don't live by a one-time only connection. They want this to be a yearly thing for them as part of your curriculum. So they're very motivated to have a successful session. Plus, all of these are evaluated. So as we scroll back up to the top, you'll see that, like, for example, there's been 57 positive evaluations. Now, the thumb is the only finger you get on these, so it's none or that. But you will see that they have this has been evaluated by classroom teachers as a successful program. So it's a great thing for people to be able to have available and to be able to select. So those are just a couple of things. David, you want to add anything more?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Paul. You know, this is really, these opportunities are amazing for students. That we have connections to science institutions like COSI, and into hospitals in which kids are able to watch live surgeries and autopsies and health types of events and actually converse. Again, this is two-way live interactive, so the students are fully engaged with the professional or whoever's doing it. So they're talking to surgeons or medical technicians about what's actually happening right now. It's just amazing.
So yeah, great. All these things are just an IP away for us, and that's a great piece on it. And also to speak a little bit about the courses, my school district, we actually receive several classes of American Sign Language and a class of Chinese, all from remote teachers down in from David's ITC group. And
That's
so
right.
we're real happy to have that, and it's been a real positive program for us. We were going to do that prior to COVID even being a word that we were cussing about. It's just something that we looked into, we saw a need, and we're starting to see that become, hopefully that'll be something that we'll see more of in the future, because it shouldn't be a best kept secret for people to know that, hey, this is where you can find holes in your curriculum can be filled through that, which is a really powerful piece.
If you want to bring up the presentation again, we've just got a simple slide about Zoom. But Paul, I'm glad you brought up daily courses, because that is a big component of what several of our member providers are doing. And again, they've been doing this for many years. So, we are the programs are bringing courses to schools that have had to they may not have a specific subject, or they may not have that level of class, and so we're able to meet needs of specific schools and really to bring equity and help meet some of the objectives through ODE and others to bring equal opportunities to all students. So and it makes instruction very efficient for the teachers, because they're able to have all of their periods taken up throughout the day. The Zoom project, Jeff Andrews mentioned this during his presentation for the Management Council. This is something that's been underway now for a couple of years, and as was stated before, the timing was just unbelievable. We have been able to bring Zoom to the K-12 space in the state at greatly reduced price. We're into our second year in this project. We were hoping to have 20,000 licenses sold over 5 years. And he said we're already at 60,000 statewide. So the Ohio DLA is working with the Management Council in the effort. The ITCs are actually selling Zoom licenses, so you can get your information from your local ITC. But we are here as a resource to help with this, and we are very, very fortunate that this has taken place.
So with that, if you would like to be able to receive some of our updates and content, you're welcome to become well, you actually technically are a member, but if you'd like to be able to be a direct receiver of content, you can actually go to the Ohio DOA membership form. And on that, I would just choose the associate level, which is the free version of it. And that is, the associate level is where our content is being sent to you. The membership level gives you the ability of actually being able to promote your programs, which you can do as well. And with that, we probably just ask you to send us an email to let us know where your school district, so we can show that you're tied to an ITC, and that would be able to make that happen for you to be able to promote other things as well if you ever have a special project. Every once in a while, we get lucky to have some real great special project ideas. Like, for example, last year we had an author contact us and say, hey, we're trying to get out into the schools, but we just physically can't do it. And we actually were able to do two sessions with an author that we had I think 10 schools in each session be able to participate in and ask questions directly to the author, which is a real powerful piece for those kids. So as opportunities like that come up, we share that through our communication and make those available to you if free or reduced costs.
Thank you. Yep, we have listservs that we maintain through the organization. So that's how we typically communicate with all of our members. So if you sign up as an individual associate, you'll receive our communication. And we'll put our emails into the chat as well.
Alrighty, so I believe we have a very small window of presentation time, so we want to be mindful of that. So we'll go ahead and throw that into the chat and entertain any questions if anybody may have some.
If not, we appreciate the time.
This is golden, yeah.
Hey, well, that was some good content, guys. I appreciate you sharing that out with everybody. I'm kind of interested in national parks myself, so hopefully we can share that with others in our schools and our districts. And thanks again for presenting today, and we'll now move on to James Myers and Mike Doherty, who are going to be talking about the Learn 21 COSN group. James and Mike, you ready?
We are. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
And can you see the screen? Perfect. Perfect. Let me back it up a little bit. All right. Good morning, everybody. Just like the groups before me, I'll try to keep this brief. I want to, be cognizant of all you guys' time. So James and I are here to talk about Learn 21 Ohio COSN. My name is Mike Doherty. I'm the Director of Technology and Innovation at Chagrin Falls Exempted Village Schools. This is my 20th year in education. And I've been in this particular role for about 7 years, but I have done everything from, desktop support to coding, kind of run the gamut. James, if you're on, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, hi, I'm the James Meyer. I'm the Vice Chair of the Ohio COSN organization, and I am in my 9th year as a IT Director role in the state of Ohio here at Bedford City Schools.
Awesome. Thank you, James. I forgot to mention I'm the chair of the Ohio COSN chapter. So let's talk about what exactly is Learn 21 Ohio COSN. We're essentially the only professional organization for K-12 IT directors out there. We are one of 28 chapters. There's a national chapter of COSN, and then there are state chapters. We are one of those 28 chapters. Currently, we have about 40 member school districts, and really our role is to advocate for change in Ohio. It's to kind of raise the bar in terms of technology leadership in Ohio and just kind of move that needle. A lot of the resources we're not going to share today, but a lot of the resources you'll find from COSN are research focused and they're leadership based, which you don't see a lot in many organizations. A lot of the stuff out there for IT directors is very technical in nature. COSN is more focused on the leadership aspect. I quickly wanted to list out our leadership team just so folks on the call could kind of see where we're all at. If you look through this list, we are spread out all across Ohio. So we do have leaders all around the state that you can reach out to. The big three that we do are mentorship, advocacy, and CETL groups. We'll talk about each one of these. I'm going to let James go ahead and talk about the mentorship program, and then we'll get into advocacy and CETL.
Yeah, so thanks, Mike. So, and I apologize, I do have to run. I'm running late for another meeting I was booked at 11:15. But the mentorship program in years past, we partnered tech coordinators with experienced technology directors, coordinators, CIOs, CTOs across the state. And that was based on geographical region and with a mentorship philosophy. And that mentorship philosophy was one that we have been both learning as mentors and mentees for the purpose of advancement. And this is not only career advancement, but also in skill advancement and understanding the educational environment advancement. So there's a lot of different roles that we come into when we first get our job as a tech coordinator, as an IT director, that we may not have a good understanding of. So the mentorship, so that we grow roles. So in years past, it was basically a one-on-one environment. We're going to change things this year simply because of the complications from COVID. And because COVID-19 has changed all of our schedules, and it's really hard to get people together and manage schedules on a small basis, we're going to do mentorship as more of a group activity this year. So we're going to have several different mentorship events, but we're still going to have that mentorship philosophy, which means we're looking at the advancement of you as a person. It's not so much advancement of, well, we want to make sure your organization reaches its goals. It's really a relationship between you and an advisor that is looking out for your best interest as a mentee. So without going into too many more details, we're still putting together what the program looks like for 2020, 2021. So if you are interested, please email me directly. I'm going to put my email into the chat. It's jmeyer@bedfordschools.org. And when you email me, we would make sure that more information gets out to you. But if you're new, it's highly recommended that you join up with the mentorship program, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what James said. I know that this call is for new tech coordinators. This is a great way to connect you with somebody in your area or in the state who has kind of walked the path that you're walking right now, who's kind of gone down this road. I've been a mentor for the past 3 years. It's a really great way to, again, just bounce ideas off somebody or ask questions and things that you haven't seen before, or run through a weird scenario. I mean, I know that COVID is completely different for all of us, but having somebody that you can just run through some of the challenges you're facing, get some advice from, really helps you grow. And there's no cost to the mentorship program as well. So I don't know if James mentioned that, but there's no cost. So James's contact info is in the chat. It's also in this presentation, but definitely reach out if you're interested in joining. The second thing that we work on is the CETL certification. That's one of the areas that I specialize in. Really, the CETL certification is unlike any technical certification. It's more a certification that shows that you really know how to do the job of a K-12 IT director. So it's not technical in nature. It's way more about the various aspects of this role. It's based on COSIN's framework of the essential skills of the K-12 CTO. So there's 3 main parts to it: leadership and vision, understanding the educational environment, and managing technology and support resources. I will tell you, as someone who trains people on how to take this exam and has taught this curriculum, it really does a good job at hitting all the different areas that you're going to see as a CTO. So all their questions are around some of these, the different hats we wear as IT directors. I don't know if Paul's still on the call, but I know Paul has been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure he could speak to that as well. This job is multifaceted. There's so many different things that we have to keep our eyes out for. So what this certification is, it shows that you are really capable of doing this job. What I would say is, if you're interested in doing this, please. When I went through the program originally, again, 20-year vet, there were still things that I learned along the way. So it's definitely something to look into. We typically host 2 study groups each year. As James mentioned with mentorship, we're currently working on the plan for 2020, 2021. I think the goal is to start a study group up in January. So please reach out if you're interested in that. And then lastly, the advocacy. And I just put some of the bullet points here on how we advocate for technology directors and students across the state. So, advocating in investments for educational technology to close the homework gap, to drive growth, to enhance learning opportunities. We advocate to superintendents so that they understand kind of how complex this role is and what you as an educational technology leader bring to the table. We work with groups like OETC, I saw Betsy's on the call, Brainstorm, and others to provide content for their conferences, as well as provide a leadership path, something that we've kind of felt like has been missing along the way. So we're really doing a lot of this kind of advocacy across the state. We work with Mike and his group as well. So tons of different things that Ohio Coaching is doing for you. So if you're interested in getting involved, here are some opportunities. These are all clickable. I know that you guys can't click them right now, but you could talk about leading or joining a CTO clinic, becoming a mentor or a mentee, partnering with one of our officers that we showed you before, or if there's any other way that you would like to be involved, please, please, please reach out. My contact info is coming up here in a minute, but don't hesitate to reach out. Really, we're here for you. So here's the website, Learn21. You go there, you'll see a link for Ohio Coaching that kind of expands more about our chapter. I put my contact info on there as well. Feel free to reach out at any point in time. And then last but not least, we have our first virtual conference. We typically hold 3 conferences a year. Our Learn21 Ohio Coaching Conference is going to be virtual this year. It's free to attend. I will say we are filling up. Last time I talked to Bill Fritz was a few days ago. We've got spots for 350 people, and I think we're at 270, 280 at this point. So if you're interested and you want to learn more, please register. We're going to break this into 3 days from 10 to 2. And each day we'll have a different theme. So cybersecurity, instructional innovation, and student data privacy. The link to register is at the bottom as well. I'll paste that in chat when I'm done. But that's it. Again, please reach out. I know you're all new at this job. The best thing I can tell you is you've got a ton of folks here that are excited to support you, that are ready to help. If you have questions, you have concerns, you just kind of want more information, please feel free to reach out. Any questions?
Mike, we have one from Tracy. Tracy, you want to unmute or just?
He answered it. Well, how much is the certification?
Certification is a bit expensive, Tracy. I have to go back and look, but I want to say the test itself is $349 or $449. I can't remember off the top of my head. They just changed pricing on me. The study courses that we offer for the certification is free, but there is a cost to the actual exam as well. If you shoot me an email, I will get you all those details.
Are you going to, can you copy and paste your email address in the
I'm going to type it right now.
And, okay. And you said you're starting that in January or?
Yeah, we normally do a fall cohort and a spring cohort, but with all the complications of restarting school this fall and everybody being kind of busy, we just chose not to do a fall course this year.
Okay.
So the hope is, mid-February, we'll start, mid-January, we'll start another course. I will get information out very, very soon. I'll start peppering the listserv, and I'll make sure that I get this to Mike as well. Typically, we do a 12-week course. We meet for an hour, usually every Wednesday from 12 to 1. Okay. And we go over the various aspects of the framework of essential skills. Okay. Yeah, and we pretty much just go through one area a week. We talk about kind of what they're looking for, the questions, the themes, any terms you might want to know, etc.
How long is the course, the actual course before you take the test?
So 12 weeks will typically run from January till about April. Okay, and then perfect. After that, you can schedule to take the exam.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Again, Mike, thank you for the opportunity to present on COSIN. We really appreciate it.
No problem, Mike. You and James do a good job. We appreciate all of your support. With that, we're going to move to the conference, folks. Betsy, and I don't know if Kathleen's on or just you doing today, Betsy. I think your mic's muted.
Hi there, I'm here.
Okay.
My name is Kathleen, and I'm the director of the Ohio Educational Technology Conference. Betsy Cordes is on the call, and I'm not sure if Tracy is on as well, but the three of us plan a massive event in February, and obviously it is a little bit different this year. We're still in the process of kind of rolling things out. I did want to give you a brief look. Can you see my screen?
It's flickering on us, and you're there's stabilized. Okay.
I'm going in and out, huh?
You're stabilized now. I don't know what.
Okay.
But you're good to go now.
It's my old state laptop. So the theme for the upcoming conference in February is going to be unprecedented times in education. As kind of a quick, what we're looking at as a schedule at a glance, we will do a live session early in the morning, and then we will do educational concurrent sessions throughout the day. We're looking at brown bag or facilitated roundtable discussions for lunch and also at the end of the day, as well as daily virtual exhibit hall hours. Overall, what we're looking for is we're not going to have as many sessions as usual. I'm expecting to have about 150 sessions. And hopefully this new schedule will give everybody time to work it into their schedule that they'll be able to attend. So our registration rates this year, we're going to have kind of individuals can come for $100, and that would be access to all sessions occurring live during the week of February 8th to February 12th, as well as any recordings of the sessions they weren't able to attend that will happen afterwards. This will include the networking sessions or the roundtables. Everybody will have access to those recordings. We do intend to continue the conference content and provide new sessions throughout the year. And this, the registration rate would cover those additional sessions as well. So we do have group discounts for groups of 5 to 14. They will receive a 10% discount. Groups of 15 to 29 get a 15% discount. Any district institutional organization would have an unlimited rate for $2,500, and that means that a district could send as many teachers as they want for that district rate of $2,500. So everybody that is registered and paid will receive a certificate of attendance for each session that they attend. And those people are able to use this for professional development contact hours. So we have updated our session tracks for this upcoming year to kind of better address the virtual conference. The new and old session tracks are digital wellness, which we're including kind of a social emotional aspect of digital wellness, since everybody is kind of in a Zoom online meeting fatigue. We have implementation and integration, which is kind of for the tech cords, where you have, the infrastructure and ingenuity is kind of for tech cords. And this is where you talk about budgeting and cybersecurity. Curriculum design and development for transitioning learning environments. Inspiration to innovation. These are your new cutting edge technologies that are coming out and how people use them. Then we have equity and inclusion, and then state of Ohio initiatives and resources. So these are very general topics, and during our call for proposals, most of the sessions will fall into these topics. So, and then one last thing, we are going to have exhibitors and sponsors. They're going to every exhibitor or sponsor will have an exhibit booth. Where they'll offer a company brochure or maybe a commercial. We'll also have opportunities for them to guru, which would be, a sponsor showing, giving a 20-minute session on how to use a particular product or service. Exhibitors will also have opportunities to meet one-on-one with exhibitors. Exhibitors, of course, will give educational sessions on their products and services. And then every day we will have limited exhibit hall hours, where we will do a type of networking where exhibitors will, and attendees can meet and talk within small groups rather than one-on-one. So we are working on putting everything together right now. Our call for proposals hopefully will come out before November 1st, and then we are going to review and schedule them as we go instead of waiting for a deadline. We also have a new website, so we're kind of being hit from all sides, so that's why we're running so late. But our website is www.ohtc.ohio.gov, and it opens up as far as registration. Our call for proposals, our exhibitor registration. Once we open all of those things up, we will send out a mass email so everybody will receive the email and receive our contact information. We are also going to be working with all of the wonderful people that you've heard from today: Ohio Coast and Learn 21, Ohio DLA, Ocali, InfoOhio, EdTech. We're hoping to continue our collaborations with those people to be able to bring you the most up-to-date information for what you need. So I'm not going to take any questions right now just because we are running so far behind, but you will receive an email from OETC very soon letting you know that everything is open, and then you can contact us from there and let us know if you have any questions and let us know how we can help you. So I appreciate your time and letting us share, and I'm so happy to see all of our collaborators on this call. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Is there any questions for the conference team? Okay. Well, thanks, ladies. I appreciate you stopping by and sharing that information with us. And hopefully we'll talk some more later on this month at our fall meeting. And I'll get some more information to you. You guys, I can do some more presentations there. And with that, I'm going to ask Amy Palermo if she's on. Amy, are you with us? Okay. All right. Well,
are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, all right. Sorry about that.
Just get ready to wrap up if you had to go.
I'll be very quick.
No problem. You got
save
all
the
time
best for last, right?
This is Amy Palermo from the Iowa Education Technology Agency.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see your names. Wish I could see your faces. Thanks for hanging in there. I'll do a quick run through of Ohio EdTechs. Is everyone able to see my screen okay?
Yes, we can see you fine.
Fabulous. So the Ohio EdTechs are technology education service agency. There's 8 of us in Ohio. We cover all of Ohio, and I have in here a map. I'm going to skip around a little in this presentation. You can see kind of our service areas, and I'm going to give you some contact information and a link to this presentation where you can get all of the contact information. If you're not sure which ed tech is yours, contact any of us. We're happy to help, and we'll make sure you're in the right place. By and large, we provide professional development. There's lots of services. Here's a list of hopefully our most popular face-to-face classes, which are now almost all virtual. Some are doing some face-to-face. We have online and self-paced. We do blended remote learning, distance learning. If you need some sort of educational technology training and you don't see it, contact your ed tech and they will either be able to create something for you or work with one of the other ed techs that has that content. And then we've got a lot of resources. I just want to point out some of our statewide initiatives, and there is a link to this. I'm going to put it in the chat here. You can go and click on some of those. The remote learning is something brand new. I have linked to the Ohio EdTech website. In March, we got together and started producing a ton of free videos to help teachers transition to remote learning. And then just recently, we put together a series, all free internet safety videos. I have linked to our playlist on YouTube, and eventually that'll be on the website. And Digital Learning Day is something that we do each year. It's a free online conference and free contact hours for teachers. So just keep an eye out for that. I believe the end of February. So if you haven't figured out by now, you're going to be charged often with professional development and helping teachers out. And that's what we're here for. So I have just highlighted here some free resources from each ed tech. You can, even if they're not your ed tech, I encourage you to go and use their free resources. Most, all but one are part of a PBS station. The ed tech agency is located inside the PBS station, and there are some amazing resources. This is Western Reserve, and they have got great videos. Their newest project has been showcasing the Ohio Tech Standards. NWOET has great COVID resources. They put together a whole list for health and for remote learning. What else have I got here for you? SOIDA has some free classes coming up for STEM, some computer science. Those are open to anyone. We have WSU Classroom. So I have a link to a bunch of our free resources. Drawing with Mr. J is a series for younger kids. Digital Wellness is a whole district rollout program, partnered with a bunch of other school districts to create all of these free resources, from classroom posters to rollout plans for administrators to communications for parents. So it's just a great resource, especially right now when there's so much remote learning going on. This is from WOUB, who has put together some great learning at home resources. And if you travel around to all of the stations, all of the ed techs, you'll find even more educator resources. The last one I'm going to tell you about, next to last one here, is PBS Learning Media. Free resources aligned to the standards, all vetted and amazing. And you probably will find some free classes to help teachers learn how to use. And then the last thing I'll tell you about, I don't have a slide. It is hot off the press, is teachercampus.org, teachercampus.org. And that is a partnership between WSU, SOIDA, and CET PBS for a all self-paced or virtual synchronous learning experience that is very low cost for educators. So check that out. And I think I did an ed tech overview in record time. Just now I'll answer questions, but also your ed techs are here to help you. Whatever you need, that's our goal. That's what we wake up every morning to do, is to provide professional learning services for your educators and hopefully make life easier on you and them. Questions if you have any.
All right. Amy, I want to thank you and the ed techs for all you do for our high schools. And we appreciate you taking time out to share with us today. And I encourage everybody to look at your local ed techs and also the other ed techs and see if they will share resources with you outside of your region.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Amy. Hopefully you'll have a good day. All right. Let me see here real quick. Are there any questions that anybody has? We got an what? All right. I want to thank all of our presenters today, especially Dave Stein, who was with the distance learning group. Dave has helped me for a lot of these presentations, making sure that the back end of this works smoothly and seamlessly. And my contact information, my email was in the chat. When we were looking at Larry Fruth's presentation, please use that to contact me if you like any of these presentations. Hopefully this session has been helpful to you, or this event has been helpful to you about learning about resources across the state that you can access. I would encourage you to share this information with those in your district or in your school so that you can help educate the students across Ohio. If there's no further questions, I'm going to return back 12 minutes of your time to you today and let you go back to work. I hope you all have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you at future meetings, especially on October 27th if you want to participate in that meeting. That'll be a little bit different meeting. That'll be more sharing updates on what's going on. Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to end the meeting.